I'm 76 years old. You're supposed to say, how do you look so young?
How do you look so young?
Thank you. Well, my stock answer used to be that I owe it all to immaturity. Only half joking. The more accurate answer I have now is that I owe it all to intermittent fasting. See, IF isn't only just getting me into shape, but in a matter of weeks, it matured me into a person who is no longer addicted to instant gratification. See, at age 76, I'm finally learning the joys of delaying food until the fast is over instead of denying myself, because the joy of delaying is there's always a happy ending. I feel like a bear, not a happy bear. Yes, losing weight is great, but a lot of people come into intermittent fasting without a weight issue. They just do it for the health. And any introduction to this subject needs to start with a sentence from the New England Journal of Medicine, not known as a purveyor of junk science. This was just December 2019, so it's kind of breaking news. And here's a sentence that must begin our conversation about the health aspects of intermittent fasting. Evidence is accumulating that eating in a 6-hour period and fasting for 18 hours can trigger a metabolic switch from glucose-based to ketone-based energy with increased stress resistance, increased longevity, and a decreased incidence of diseases, including cancer and obesity. I brought that quote to our first IF support Zoom meeting, had it on a virtual background. I thought everybody would be able to read it. Turned out to be more like a Saturday Night Live sketch. Can you all read this?
Not really. Can you read it to us?
I'll read it out loud. Evidence is accumulating that eating in a 6-hour period and fasting for 18 hours can trigger a metabolic switch from glucose-based to ketone-based energy with increased stress resistance, increased longevity, and a decreased incidence of diseases, including cancer and obesity. That's the most awkward reading of science I've ever seen in my life. I show you that clip so that you'll never forget that anytime you think of intermittent fasting, you associate it immediately with longevity. Thank you. Notice the reference to triggering a metabolic switch. I'm not a doctor, but I have been to New England during fall foliage where nature trips a switch that brings the colors alive. Just like through intermittent fasting, nature flips a switch that brings our colors alive. So here's my layman's version of the New England study. Once the metabolic switch is triggered, your digestive system falls in love with you. See, shutting the belly boiler down absolutely for 18 to 20 hours at a time a day is absolutely the best thing you can do for your body. It gives it the regenerative capacity to convert stored fat directly into muscle and a bunch of other things. It's not just one switch. There are actually a symphony of different switches getting tripped, metabolic as well as psychological, which is why when my eating window closes at noon and I know I'm not going to have another thing until morning of the next day, I'm not hungry that afternoon. I'm not hungry that evening. I'm not even very hungry when I wake up in the morning. I eat because I enjoy eating. But the psychological switch that had been tripped for me is that when it comes to food, I no longer have any sense of deprivation.
I think the beauty of the IF, the way it's worked so well for me, is that it doesn't create a dimension of deprivation for the young part of me. So it's just those 16, 18 hours. I can do that without going into deprivation.
Yep.
I've tried the long fasts. I've done 21 days.
Wow.
And I can do it. But I come off it, and then my relationship with food's a little crazier.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized, I've deprived a young part of myself, and it's not good for me.
Yeah.
Those of us who have food issues usually are Epicureans or gourmets or foodies, or at least people that love people and love their people through food. And the food thing is just so important to me. I'm Armenian, I'm Mediterranean, so we break bread, and I love long meals with conversation and storytelling and laughing and crying, and it goes on, and I love it to go on and on. The problem is the eating goes on and on. Right?
Yeah.
So deprivation is the key. And I think the beauty of the IF, the way it's worked so well for me, is that it doesn't create a dimension of deprivation.
To trigger the switch requires following a precise plan for long enough to trigger the switch.
It's not something that you can feel when it's happening, but the science tells us that after several hours of fasting, your body naturally starts to flip on that metabolic shift and start turning your old fat into energy. What a body miracle we have. I mean, what an opportunity to just take that old stored fat and turn it into energy, to where we find clarity and purpose and, more vitality.
And in the IF community, the general wisdom is that 30 days of following a plan to the letter will be enough for most people to trigger the switch, to see what the benefits are, to experience the benefits of this path. And that's why we're here to support you in that first 30 days. And that's the support that we who are fasting for wellness and clarity are here to provide as a labor of love.